All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to see you all. Welcome to, it's weird. It's weird because it's like High Holiday Boot Camp. High holidays are over though. Maybe I have to rethink the name. Maybe we should just call it Tishrei Boot Camp because it's not, because like part 3 of High Holiday Boot Camp is Sukkot, which is not one of the high holidays. I'm not trying to get too analytical with my name, with the name that I created, but I think I am getting a little analytical with the name. Nonetheless, this is session 3 of High Holiday Boot Camp, or we'll just call it Boot Camp.
Call it the holiday season.
The holiday season. Oh, happy holidays from your friends here at Boot Camp. Okay, we'll keep it neutral like that. We'll keep it super neutral. It's also Torah studies. I know what you're thinking. How could it be both? We're just that good. We're just that. We can handle the whole, we can just make it all happen. It could be boot camp, it could be Torah studies, it could be a Sukkot class, whatever you want to call it, this is it. So we have to begin like this. I did the same with the previous 2 sessions. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the holiday of Sukkot? Free online, unmute yourself, jump in. Free association, go. Sukkot.
Sukkah.
A sukkah.
Lulav.
Lulav.
Etrog.
All right.
Sitting in a storm with Rabbi New with rain watering our soup.
Oh, interesting. Sitting in the sukkah in the rain with the rain falling into the soup with Rabbi New. All right.
Simchat Torah.
Simchat
We had
Torah.
hail today.
Together.
In Pittsburgh.
We had hail today. Hail, 40 degrees,
Incredible. Exactly.
several times.
That's why Rabbi Ari lives here. Look,
Thank you, Craig. Exactly.
You're welcome.
Less of a chance here.
I think of joy.
Oh, joy. Good. Adrian and Craig, you guys are on the same page. Joy and happiness.
Oneness with nature, love feeling with God's
Oneness
love,
with nature.
protection.
I want to share with you an insight. This is
Unity.
unity. Good. Excellent. A hug. David. Perfect. This is what I wanted to speak about. There is
Grapes, a grape harvest.
grapes. Okay. There's an amazing insight in Kabbalah about the halachic parameters of a sukkah. Now, I think if we were to ask, well, let me just ask, how many walls does a sukkah have? What would you say?
3.
Most sukkahs have how many walls? 4, typically 4 with a door, right? 4 with a door.
Most.
However,
3.5.
in halacha, all you need are 2 walls and a piece of a third, and a tefach of a third. A tefach is a hand, like the width of a hand. So it's not big. So let me just break this down. In halacha, you need, let me just use this, okay? Oh, look at that. Oh, nurturing relationships coming up. Look at that. Subliminal advertising. Look at my sukkah. So anyway, you have basically, right, 1 wall, 2 wall, right, 1, 2, and then a little bit of a third. That's all you need. And these could be absent, and it's still a kosher sukkah. Comes along, I think it's maybe the Arizal or the Baal Shem Tov or the Alter Rebbe. Who Ari says this?
Yeah, I heard that.
About the hug? He says like this, what's the significance? Think about how you hug someone, right? What do you hug? When you hug somebody, okay, well, if you hug them one-handed, so you put your arm around them, right? So if you look at the arm segments, 1, 2, and a little bit of a third, right? This is a kosher, can you all see this? Oh, look at this, I'm like a robot guy. Yes, right, this is a depiction of a kosher sukkah. It is incredible. It's a depiction of a kosher sukkah. What is a kosher sukkah? A kosher sukkah is in the image of a hug, which tells us, or which reminds us that at its core, the holiday of Sukkot is symbolic of the divine embrace of God hugging us, as it were, of God embracing us, of God loving us unconditionally, and that is part of the energy of Sukkot. Tonight, we focus on the theme of joy, because joy, it's one of those things where it seems elusive, and it's almost like the more we try to pursue joy, it seems like the more joy runs away from us. It's like, how do you corral joy and happiness? Like, what do you do? Like the world says, if you buy this, you'll be happy. And then we buy it and then it's still not happy. So like, we're still not happy. So what is the secret to joy? As we know, we've discussed this so many times in different contexts. Joy is always on the inside. Joy is an inside job. It's not something that comes from the outside. It comes from within. And so therefore the question is, what are the internal dynamics or conditions that help give rise to joy, known in Hebrew as simcha? I've also said this many times. The Hebrew word simcha, if you add the letter bet in front of it, right? Bisimcha, which means to be in a state of joy. Bisimcha, you switch around those letters of bisimcha, it spells the word machshava. Machshava means thought, which tells us that simcha, or being in a state of joy, being bisimcha, it's all about machshava. It's all about how we're thinking. Show me how you're thinking, and I'll show you how you feel, because our heart and our emotions always follow our mind. Where your head is, that's where your heart's going to be. So if we're thinking about anxiety-inducing things, we're probably going to feel a little anxious. If we're thinking about happy-inducing thoughts, we're probably going to be a little bit happy. That's just the way it is. And so it's all about understanding the internal dynamics and then operating from there. So tonight we look at joy. What are the conditions for joy? What are the internal conditions? What are the internal mechanics of it? Spiritual mechanics, psychological mechanics, as well as the relationship between all of that and Sukkot. And so let's talk about let's talk about the major mitzvot of Sukkot. So the first mitzvah of the holiday is to build a sukkah. You may have noticed there's sukkah building happening right outside, right? Live sukkah build, right? It's still going on?
Yeah,
It was going on a few minutes ago. Live sukkah, 2 sukkahs going up outside. So live sukkah building.
Is Steve Sukkot?
There is yes, actually. Well, I don't know if they're calling it specifically, but it's 2 sukkahs. I think it's just it can't.
The natural growth of the.
It's the growth. You can't fit in one sukkah.
Okay.
Back to the idea here. The idea is that one mitzvah is building the sukkah. What's the second major mitzvah? Lulav and esrog. Excellent. We have that in the other room over there. You pick up your plants. The third is not really a mitzvah. It's a custom. Although I will say this, it's what we know as a halacha l'Moshe Messina, which means that it is a mitzvah, but it's not necessarily specified explicitly in Torah. It's alluded to, and we'll speak about that third one soon. Let's jump in though to our text. So everyone, you all have text in front of you. Odette, I'll ask you to read in just a moment. Let me pull this up online, and we're going to start with, as you can imagine, we're going to start with text number 1, and this is from the book of Vayikra. Now, and there's a few times that the holidays are mentioned in the Torah, in Leviticus, as well as in Deuteronomy, in Vayikra and Devarim. And here, the Torah speaks about the mitzvah of the 4 kinds. So, one second. All right, take it away.
And you shall take for yourself on the first day the fruit of the hadar tree, date palms, fronds, and branch of braided tree, and willow of the brook, and you should rejoice before your God for 7-day period.
Now, thank you. This is a very significant verse right there. It's one verse. And I'm highlighting online, and I'll just highlight also in person, verbally, on the third line, the middle words, you shall rejoice. There's a correlation. The Torah is drawing a correlation between the mitzvah of the arba minim, of the 4 kinds. In other words, the lulav, esrog, the esrog, lulav, hadassim, and aravos, and the concept of joy. It says, you shall take these things for yourself, on the first day, and you shall rejoice before your God. You know where it doesn't talk about rejoicing? When it comes to building the sukkah. It doesn't say, build your sukkah and rejoice. It says, take these things for yourself on the first day, take these plants, and you shall rejoice. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God for a 7-day period. Clearly, the Torah is correlating. The Torah is drawing some sort of connection between the 4 kinds and simcha, and that needs to be understood. What is the connection? So when it comes to building the sukkah, we don't necessarily find a strong simcha theme. When it comes to the lulav, esrog, hadas, and arava, we do find the simcha theme, and this leads us into the next observance of Sukkot, the one that's not explicated, that's not clearly specified in Torah itself, but it's alluded to. It's alluded to here in a verse in Isaiah. It's alluded to in other verses, in other contexts, but I'm going to explain it soon. Actually, let me explain it now before we read this. Okay, so here we go. Yaakov asked to read it in a second, but before you read it, let me explain. Every day, starting from the second night of Sukkot, there was a ceremony called it became known as the Simchat Beit HaShoeva, but it was known as basically, or in English we would call it, the water drawing ceremony. They would draw water, and they drew the water. Why did they draw? What do they need water for? I mean, you need water anyway, but what was the water for? The water was for a very specific practice that they would only do once a year, and that is known as, in English at least, as the water libation. Now, in case you're wondering what libation is, it's almost like phylacteries. Like, who knows what, like, we're translating Hebrew into English that no one uses. What's a libation? Libation is, you have to take my word for it, a libation is pouring. When you pour it somewhere, in the act of ceremony or service. So typically, every single day on the altar, every single day in the temple of old, on the altar, there would be a wine libation. They would pour wine on the Mizbeach. Why? Because the Torah says, when you bring an animal offering, you accompany it with typically a flour offering as well, and you pour some wine. Why? I don't know. It's a well-rounded meal. Right? You got your wine, you got your carbs, and you got your meat. You got the whole package. Whereas the salad, I don't know, that's outside the temple. You have to order one to go. Fine. So that's that. On Sukkot, instead of, or maybe in addition to the wine libation, the pouring of the wine, they would pour water on the altar. Where did they get the water from? Well, they drew it from the Shiloach well, or stream, or spring. So they would go down to this place. It was in Jerusalem. They would draw water from there, and then they would use it to pour on the Mizbeach. Hey, good to see you. And then they would pour it on the Mizbeach, on the altar. And this happened only throughout the holiday of Sukkot. It didn't happen any other time of the year. There's something about the water. Okay, we're going to get there. So tonight we're going to analyze the spiritual meaning and the psychology of the water pouring. And we're going to contrast it with wine and understand what's the difference between wine and water. That's going to be the essence of tonight's class. Now, but before we get there, the drawing of the water. Oh, okay, so one second. So if you read the Torah, and as we know, the mitzvot come from Torah, the 5 books of Moses. There's other books of scripture, but the mitzvot, all the mitzvahs are in the 5 books, somewhere or another. But you don't find this commandment, thou shalt pour water on the altar during Sukkot. You don't find it. Again, as I mentioned before, but let me just state it clearly now. It's one of those things that we know was done, and it's called a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. It means that God told Moses at Sinai, he said, this is what you do on Sukkot. And then he said, tell the people, you don't have to write it down. Most things were written down. Some things weren't. You know what? Something else that's not written down? How to shecht an animal, how to slaughter an animal. Doesn't say anything. In fact, the Torah says that you have to slaughter the animal as I told you. God says, as I told you, doesn't say anything. That's one of the sources that we have for the fact that there were extra, there's probably a word for this.
Explanatory notes.
There were other conversations that happened that weren't written down that contain part of the body of Jewish law. In other words, not everything was written down. What was written down is what God said to write down. But that's not the entirety of the conversation. The entirety of the conversation was the totality of what Moses passed down to the Jewish people. As it said at the beginning of Pirkei Avot, in the beginning of the ethics of the fathers, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moses received the Torah at Sinai. Umasar Yeshua gave it to Joshua. Yeshua Zakanim Lenavim. That was passed down. There was a chain of custody in which this was passed down. Now, and you might be thinking, well, maybe that's just about handing the book over. It's not just handing the book or handing the scroll. The scrolls, everyone got access to the scrolls. This means is that there was a chain of custody for the oral tradition. And again, this is one of those mitzvot, one of those areas of law that is exclusively in the oral tradition. However, at the same time, there are allusions in scripture to this practice. In this section in Torah, which details the sacrifices that were to be brought on Sukkot, it's repeated for the entire 7-day holiday. Every single day, it's the same mitzvah, the same the same sequence of sacrifices to bring. It's identical. The exception that the bulls, you brought one less each day. So day one, I think it was 14 or 13, and then the next day it was 12 or 13. You basically dropped one of the bulls each day, but everything else was the same. In the context of those commandments, of those sacrifices, the Torah, there are some letters that are either bigger or smaller or missing. And the three letters that are bigger, smaller, or missing are mem or extra. I'm sorry, bigger, smaller, or extra, not missing. Mem, yud, and mem, which spells the Hebrew word mayim, which means water. And this becomes not a clear source, but this becomes, an allusion to the fact, a hint to the idea of the nisuch hamayim, of the pouring of the water on the altar. But let's now read text 2a. Yaakov, this is where we're up to, text 2a.
I wanted to say something
Yes.
about 2A. Since I was a child, I've known the dance of Shafta Mayim B'Sasod. Never knew where it came from.
Right. So, yeah. Classic song. Classic song. Classic dance also. Dance it or no. All right, but let's read it. Yaakov, please read text 2a.
And you shall draw water with joy from the fountains of salvation.
Now, lest you think this is something metaphorical, drawing water with joy from the fountains of salvation. What does that mean? I don't know. It sounds good. Give me some of those fountains of salvation. We understand this also to be an allusion to this mitzvah of drawing the water. Text 2b. Here's what the Mishnah says. Take it away.
One who did not see the celebration of the place of the drawing of the water never saw a celebration in his or her day.
Says the Mishnah that if you didn't see the joy and the celebration that occurred when they drew the water, then you never saw a party in your life. What a statement. You haven't experienced joy unless you experience the joy of the drawing of the water. And I'm going to ask probably the most obvious question I've ever asked. What is so joyous about drawing water to be poured on the altar? What are we talking about here? That doesn't even make sense. They rejoiced when they drew water?
If it's an art project, maybe they actually drawing water.
Oh, you're saying...
It must be more fun.
However, in the Hebrew, drawing is not drawing, and it doesn't make sense. So what is actually going on? I actually want to read. I have here up on my phone. I don't have it printed out, but I want to read to you an excerpt from the Talmud. We just read an excerpt from the Mishnah in Tractate Sukkot, but here's what the Talmud says. Okay, one who has not witnessed the celebration of the Beit HaShoeva, of the water drawing, has never seen real joy. In the evening after the first day of the festival, in other words, night two of Sukkot, the priests and Levites would go down into the women's courtyard of the Holy Temple and make major renovations. What are those renovations? Hey, Sandrine, here we go. They would attach metal struts to the wall of the women's courtyard in the places that have been prepared for that purpose, and boards of wood were then laid onto the struts. Yeah, you with me? Sounds like they're making platforms, correct? Something like that? Okay, they would thus prepare 3 balconies. Oh, balconies, there you go. On the southeast, that was easy. On the southeast and north sides of the courtyard. And now, obviously, they pulled the permits for this. Obviously, this was done by certified, certified
Civil
team.
engineers.
And absolutely, this was not ad hoc, just ever going, with the drill. Okay, the men, here we go. These balconies were used by the women. The men would stand in the courtyard below.
Yeah, they mentioned.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So basically, since there was such a crush of people, so the men took over the women's courtyard and the women had balconies. Okay, let's continue. The entire courtyard was 187 amos long. 187 amos. Each amma is about 1.5 feet. So what is that? 250. All right, it's about a football field. And 135 amos wide. Oh, that's pretty big. Yet miraculously, tens of thousands of people were able to crowd in. Okay, if you've ever been to 770 crowds,
Yeah.
You'll also know that was not a huge shul, big, very large, but not like, and yet a lot of people.
10,000.
All right, golden lamps. I'm just straight up, in case anyone's wondering. This is an excerpt from the Talmud. Golden lamps were placed in the courtyard, each 50 amos high. That is incredibly high. That's like 75 feet up.
Golden what?
Lamps.
Kind of like where the western wall is right now, this big, huge.
Yeah, each lamp had 4 golden bowls on the top, which were filled with oil and wicks. Remember, this is before electricity. Each lamp had 4 ladders attached, a ladder for each bowl, and 4 young Kohanim would climb up the ladders carrying pitchers containing 30 lug of oil, which they poured into the bowls. Who had that job to carry the oil up 75 feet on a ladder? What does that even mean? Someone should be YouTubing this, GoProing it, and then just having a channel, because that sounds like what that is. Thick wicks were used so that the lamps would give considerable light. The wicks were, you know how complicated it was to get light back in the day? You actually had to do all this. Now we just hit a switch, done. Thick wicks were used so that the lamps would give considerable light. The wicks were made from the worn out linen pants and belts of the Kohanim. Oh, look at that, reuse, very eco-friendly. When the lamps were lit, there was not, oh, look at this. When the lamps were lit in the temple, there was not a courtyard in all of Jerusalem that was not illuminated by the light of the Beit HaShoev. For the holy temple was situated on the highest hill in Jerusalem, and the lamps were tall and extended above the walls of the courtyard. Meaning, the whole city got lit up when they put these when they lit these lamps. The whole city got lit up. So great was the illumination that a woman could stand in her courtyard at night and check grain by the light of the Beit HaShoev. And I know what you're thinking. What were you checking grain for? I don't know. Back in the day, you had to check grain, huh?
Check bugs.
That was the standard.
That's a standard. Could you check grain for, I don't know, bugs,
Bugs, yeah.
I guess, other things, right? Could you discern it at night? They could. That's how bright it was. This is incredible. Men of piety and of good deeds would dance before those who had assembled for the celebration with lit torches in their hands, singing songs and praises. And while the sage of Israel and her leaders and pious ones were celebrating in the courtyard of the Israelites, the Levim would stand below on the 15 steps, etc., playing their harps, lyres, cymbals, trumpets, and other musical instruments, singing songs of praise throughout the night. Okay, great. I just want to just fast forward through this a little bit. Okay, they sounded trumpets. Oh, well, I can't skip over this. When the Kohanim who were sent to bring water for the Nisach, all of this was happening at the temple. Meanwhile, there were messengers that were going to get the water. This whole pomp and circumstance was about drawing the water and bringing the water back. Okay, when the Kohanim that had been sent to draw the water reached the courtyard, when they came back basically with the water in tow, as it were, they would sound a tekiah, a true, and a tekiah. They blow the shofar, maybe with a trumpet or with a, I don't know, whatever they used. They proceeded to sound the trumpets. There you go, until they reached the gate that led out to the east. Okay, fast forward. Rabbi Shimon Chanina said, when we rejoiced at the Simcha Beit HaShoeva, our eyes saw no sleep. You know what that means? It was an all-night party. How was this possible? What took so much time? The first hour of the day was for the daily morning sacrifice. From there, we went to pray. From there, we went to bring the additional sacrifice of the festival. From there to the study hall, from there to eat and drink, and from there to mincha, from there to the daily afternoon sacrifice, and from then on, we were at the Simcha Beit HaShoeva. Basically, they had a full day and then a full night with this party and celebration. Okay, it seems like, listen, I'm always up for a party. Far be it from me to be a party pooper. However, I will say this sounds to me like a fairly flimsy reason to party. Like they drew water from a stream, from a thing, and now it's a whole geschäft. What is actually going on? What does that actually mean? So we're going to explore this tonight and understand what is the joy that stands behind this water and the water drawing ceremony and the water pouring on the altar. What is the deal? So what we're going to do is take a look at text number 3. Okay, Adrian, if you don't mind, please read text number 3. This is from Maimonides, and here he describes some more details.
Even though it is a mitzvah to rejoice on all the festivals, there is an additional celebration in the temple on the festival of Sukkot. The celebration would begin on the night after the first day of the festival, since similarly on each day of Halloween, when offering the daily afternoon sacrifice, they would begin to celebrate for the rest of the day and throughout the night.
Thank you. So so here Maimonides clarifies, it didn't just happen one night. So this just also to clarify, as Maimonides does, it didn't happen the first night of the holiday. It happened night 2 of the holiday. So it was the first night and first day of Sukkot that closed out. Then was this water drawing party, musical instrument playing, torch lighting situation all nighter, basically. And it went on for every single night of Sukkot.
So when the temple's gonna be rebuilt in the future, God willing, this ceremonial
Party.
happen again?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's coming back. It's coming back. It's coming back strong. All right, we're skipping text 4 and we're going to ask the question. So we're now, okay, so now we'll officially ask the question. What was the great joy? What's the meaning of this water pouring? What's the meaning of the water drawing? What's the meaning of the joy associated with it? What's the deal? Why, Manashtana, why is this holiday different than all other days? All other days you pour the wine, and this holiday you pour the water. What is going on? And now we're going to break it down by understanding the difference between wine and water. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. In front of us here, we have bottles of water. Okay? This is Kirkland Signature Purified Water with minerals added for taste. Oh, how nice.
I eat
Nice.
tap water.
Huh?
Tap water.
Tap water. Okay. Oh, you're saying I eat tap water. That's
Yeah.
fine. Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, interest. Oh,
That's-
interest. Oh, I had no idea.
Sure.
I've been living the life.
Not the natural.
So this would not be from the Mei Shiloh. This would not be from the Shiloh water. Okay, fine. So we couldn't use this. Guys, back up the altar. We don't have the water yet. Okay, so here we go. So here we have water. Okay, so how would you distinguish? How would you characterize water versus? We don't have wine, but water versus wine. Give me some differences. Go.
Wine we use for religious ceremonies.
Good, but give me something else.
Water is pure.
It's clear and tasteless.
Good. This is clear and tasteless. Wine is not.
Wine will get you drunk, and
Wine will get you drunk.
Wine is made from fruit, and water is just pure liquid.
I'll modify that a little bit. You squeeze wine out of grapes, right? You squeeze it, water. You don't squeeze necessarily, but it comes out. Okay, what else?
Speak up because he wants to.
It gladdens your heart. It gladdens your heart.
Say it again.
It gladdens your heart.
Wine makes you a little happy. And a little too much wine makes you a little shaker. V'yayin yisamach levav enosh. Right? It says, Sir King David writes, right? And Sir Richard said,
Sir, I did say.
and Master Amar Oded also said that King David writes, "V'yayin yisamach levav enosh." That wine gladdens the heart. Wine makes you happy, and that's why we use wine for smachot. That's why we use wine in the context of joyous ritual occasions. Wine is always. By the way, every single su'udat mitzvah, if there's a meal that's a mitzvah, part of that is wine. Now, if somebody can't drink wine, then they go to plan B. But ideally, wine is involved in every su'udat mitzvah. So whether it's just doing life cycles here, whether it's a brit milah, right, circumcision, or whether it's a wedding, or whether it's a say it again, Shabbat, holiday, etc., you always have wine or a wine equivalent at that because wine is considered. Now, wine is considered to be something, a davar chashuv, something that is valuable. Wine costs more. If no one mentioned it, I'll mention it. This bottle of water, it's like, what is it? Costco's like, you get 40 of these for like $5. I don't know. This is not expensive. Oh, that's expensive. What is it?
Because it's not that
FBI.
like Costco.
1 second. Is that from France? Oh, so
Right.
And it's
French.
from.
It's
natural-
French. That's
It's
what it's
wine.
valuable.
The wine that comes
Oh,
from
it's
France.
expensive.
all the Perrier is also French.
That is
You remember
true.
Spaceballs, Perrier, with the can of, you remember that? Classic line, huh? Such a good movie. We should show it.
What was the line?
I don't know if it's appropriate now, but we should totally show it. Spaceballs.
What was the line?
It was like a spoof of like Star Wars. So good.
Mel Brooks is a genius.
Genius. He's still alive. Mel
Yeah,
Brooks
yeah.
is still
Oh,
alive.
yeah.
Still alive.
Mel Brooks is still alive.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You know, he went to Germany in World War II. He was entertaining the troops over there. Like he was a soldier. It's a crazy backstory.
You know, his
Back-
most famous lines when in movie about the history of the world.
He dropped
He comes with the 15 commandments and he's like, I give you the 50. Oops, the 10 commandments.
right. Whoops, drop some. Okay.
Probably Blazing Saddles has the most one-liners. Go do that, voodoo that.
All right. Hold on. All right, so back to the story. Back to the story.
Back to the Torah.
So back to Torah. Sorry, hate to be a buzzkill.
Sorry, man.
So look, wine is, it feels like we serve wine. Wine is more expensive. Wine is more luxurious. Wine is more. You go to a restaurant, there's a wine menu. There's no water menu. I've never seen a water menu. You want water? Sure, you can have water, but they have a book with wines. You get a little book with a little padding or something, right, on fancy paper with very expensive prices. So like wine is a thing. Wine is simple. Wine's taste, look, actually I'm wrong. Oh no, this water has floral bouquets and hints of cherry. I'm kidding, of course it doesn't. It's just water. Wine will tell you all of those details. It comes from volcano soil. I don't know if it actually does, right? It'll give you a whole mice and a spiel. Wine is way more sophisticated. And so, my friends, here is where I'm going with all this. Wine is associated most naturally with joy. Why is wine associated with joy? Because wine, physically, its properties evoke joy, but wine also represents, I alluded to before, you have to take something. The wine or the juice, right, is hidden inside the grapes. You have to squeeze it and you extract from what was hidden and you make a reveal. The same thing is true with joy. Joy is typically associated with what we call gilui hahelem. When something that was concealed becomes revealed, that's when joy comes in. Let me connect it with a verse that I think many of you are familiar with. It's from the Hallel. It's from Psalms, but we sing it Hallel. Aim habanim smecha, hallelujah. Aim habanim smecha, which translates as the mother of the children rejoices. Aim, like ima, habanim, the mother of the son, of the children. Smecha is simcha, is happy. What does that mean? So Kabbalah says the following. Abba and ima, father and mother. Father is a euphemism and a reference to chachma. And ima, or aim, mother, is a euphemism for bina. What's the difference between chachma and bina? I'm about to spill the binas right now on this. So bad. I was. I had to create a whole class just to get that line in. It's unbelievable. But I will not spare any lead up. So again, chachma is intellect. It's the intellectual process when you are. It's the aha moment. It's when you get an insight or an intuition or a sort of a flash of awareness and recognition. You don't fully understand it, but it's the sense of, I got something, like, aha. It's depicted in cartoons or comic books as a light bulb, the light bulb goes off. But at that stage, you still don't understand it, let alone you would not be able at that stage to yet share it with someone else. You couldn't explain it yet. And the truth is sometimes we have like, oh, I got it. And then like a second later, like, oh, I forgot. Like, what was that? Like you forget. It's easy come, easy go sometimes. Bina is not chachma. That's chachma. Chachma is creative intelligence. Bina is analytical. Bina is comprehension, not conception. It's where you understand it, you break it down, you have it, you already have it. You're not coming up with anything new, but you're breaking it down so you understand it really well. That's chachma, that's bina. Where is joy? Joy is not in chachma. Chachma is still wonder. It's not joy. Chachma, you're in a state of wonderment, like you see the idea. You're kind of like you're transported. You're uplifted. A door opens to another realm of insight. You have a glimpse of some sort of higher knowledge or higher awareness, but you don't fully understand it yet. And so there's no joy. Joy is when you understand it. Aim habanim smecha, bina is associated with simcha because that's where it makes sense. I mean, think about in the context of learning, right? Right now in this stage in the class, we have a few balls in the air. What's water? What's wine? Now I threw in chachma bina to the mix, and I was wondering, where's he going with this? There's no joy at the end of the class when everything's tied together and you understand it. Oh, that was a great class. Hopefully it all works out for everybody. That would be the goal. So in other words, bina, when you finally understand and you put it all together, that's where joy is. In the chachma discovery, there's no joy yet over there.
But isn't bina not really? So the way I understand chachma bina dot is chachma is the inspiration, the insight, the idea. And then Bina, so you get the concept. And then Bina would be the outline, the prototype. And then the Da'at is bringing the invention, bringing the work of art, like she's making work of art right now. It's not finished yet, but then the novel, etc., the book, that's joy because you just got it, you brought it to the world, which was the purpose of the idea.
Yeah, no, you're right. So in the larger picture, you could say that it's still not finished in Bina, but there is still some sort of finality where you understand it, even if it's not produced yet for the world. Within yourself, Bina is a sort of, where you come to a place where like, oh yeah, I understand it, I get it, it makes sense to me, and you can start enjoying that. If you're learning Torah and you're still kind of like figuring it out, that's not you're in the shakla batar, you're in the kind of the back and forth stage. You're not really, you don't really have the satisfaction. The joy comes when you put it together. Another way to understand this is that wine represents what I would call a sophisticated joy, a joy that's born of understanding, of making sense of things. Like, I understand it, it makes sense, I'm happy. In other words, it's a little bit, and I'll say this, I'll just say this straight up, it's a little bit selfish. In other words, if I don't understand it, then I'm not going to experience the joy. But when I understand it, I can experience joy. In other words, it's associated a little bit with ego. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. This is not bad. It doesn't make it bad, but it does make it self-oriented. You see, that's another difference between Chachma and Bina. Chachma is where I kind of see the idea. Bina is where I process the idea. And it's very different. Me seeing the idea is me observing an outside party. Me understanding the concept is how I understand it. Chachma is objective, Bina is subjective. In other words, everybody is going to walk out of this class, and if somebody asks you, so what'd you learn tonight? Everyone is going to say something else, right? Even if you heard the same person, that would be me, sharing something, everyone's going to walk out with a different angle on it. The Chachma is the same. In other words, you're observing or hearing the same source, but the way you interpret it, the way you understand it, and the way you walk away with it is all different. Bina is subjective. Chachma is objective. So Chachma is it's like you go into the Louvre. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, first time. The Louvre, right? You go into the Louvre and you observe the Mona Lisa. And your first thought is, wow, that's way smaller than I thought. No, right? You observe the Mona, that's what I've heard. You observe the Mona Lisa. Everyone's seeing the same thing. But what's your impression of it? Oh, everyone's got a different impression. Someone's like, that's amazing. It lived up to it. Someone's like, that's it? That's the whole thing? Everyone's going to have a different takeaway. Chachma is the picture. Being is how you feel about the picture, how you see it, how you perceive it. Being is subjective. Chachma is objective. Stay with me for a second. Aim habanim smecha means typically joy is born of the way I see things, the way I understand things. If it makes sense, I like it. If I don't get it, I don't like it. It's very much about me, right? And joy is very much a subjective feeling. This is what I call the joy of sophistication. There's another form of joy. Sorry, forget joy for a second. There's another modality of being, which is not sophistication. It's not me needing to understand things and make sense of things and me being okay with it. Like, okay, makes sense. I feel good about it. Let's do it. That's one modality. I'm being driven. Like, if I understand it, if it makes sense, I'm on board. If I understand it, it makes sense, and I'm enjoying it, and I appreciate it, sign me up for it. If not, I'm out. That's one modality. Second modality is surrender. Surrender means I don't understand it, doesn't make sense, I'm not excited about it, I'm doing it anyway. Water. It doesn't taste fancy, it doesn't look fancy, I'm drinking it anyway. In other words, I'm committed to hydration, right? Despite the fact that it's not. Imagine someone says, I only drink wine. I only drink wine. You want some water? Nope, only drink wine. Breakfast, wine. It's not like sometimes with kids, some kids are pickier eaters than other kids. And it's like, I don't like this. Okay. How far do you want to go with that? It's like, okay, you don't like it, but sometimes you may just need to eat, like, because that's just the thing that you need to do, right? I mean, obviously, you want to work with the child. This is not a parenting class on this. No. This is not like, I'm not getting into parenting tips here. I'm just saying the concept of, I'll only eat what I enjoy. I'll only do what I understand. That's a wine dynamic. The wine dynamic is, if it looks good, tastes good, is expensive enough that I'm excited about it, right? If it gives me that buzz, I'm in. And what if it's water? You're out. Too simple. This is the difference between, when we talk about service of God, between serving God in a way of ta'am vadat, in a way of understanding, versus in a way of kabbalat ol, which means acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Two different dynamics in serving God. One way is to say, I'm going to study, I'm going to learn, I'm going to understand the rationale behind the mitzvot, and the ones that I get, I'm all in on. The ones that I don't get, not yet. That's going to be second tier. When I get to it, I get to it. But right now, I'm excited about the things that make sense to me. The ones that I understand, the mitzvot, the observances that I get, that make me feel good, that I feel intoxicated by, as it were, the ones that seem sophisticated. I like those cherry notes. I like that volcanic soil. I'm all in on that. And the other stuff, not so much. That's a wine service of God. That's wine service. I didn't say bottle service. That's something else, right? This is wine service. What's the water service of God? The water service of God is
Winery.
With that, oh, very good. No whining. Exactly. The water service of God is, God wants it done. I'm going to get it done. That's it. Right? Am I going to sign? Just give me an example. This is not a judge. I wasn't here either. But like a shul puts out a call. We need volunteers to build a sukkah. Do I like building a sukkah or I don't like building a sukkah? If I like, I'll show up. If I don't like, I won't. I'm not going to show up. Or that's one way to think about it. Another way is a sukkah needs to be built. I'm here. Again, I'm just using an example, what's happening right now. It's two different ways of operating. One way is to say that I do the things that I like. Another way of thinking about it is I do the things that I'm needed to do. That's two totally. Now, I'm not saying we can't do both. We can't live kind of in both spaces. But they are two different exercises. One is an exercise of, I don't know, in my head I'm using, because of alliteration, I'm a little stuck in alliteration, sophistication versus surrender. One is to say, I'm a sophisticated guy. I don't dabble in water. I'm not a water guy, I'm a wine guy. I'm a sophisticated guy. If it makes sense, if it tickles my fancy, I'm in. If you can intrigue me, you got me. If it makes sense, boom, I'm there. That's the sophisticated approach. That's the wine approach. The water approach is surrender. I'm here to do what's needed. You want me to drink water? I'm in. You want me to climb a pole 75 feet? That's like 100. Yeah, in the air, and then with a tank of oil on my back and poured it on top. First of all, no chance. There's no chance for that. But conceptually, I'm there. If that's what's needed to be done, I'm there. We each, look, none of us are, no one in this room or no one on Zoom, like no one is this. No one is a piece of paper. We're all dimensional. We have 3 dimensions. We're not just like, either you're wine or you're water. It's not even close. There are certain areas in life in which we're wine people, in which we will only do it if we're excited about it. And certain areas that we're committed. We have obligations, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter whether you like waking up at 3 a.m. to feed the baby. The baby needs to be fed. Right? But certain areas in life will say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. Why? Because it's not tickling. I don't feel it. I'm not excited about it. So again, there's wine. There's a wine approach and a water approach. Make sense? Yeah, sort of. But let's get to the kicker here. All of this is the setup. I feel the wine settling in. Huh? Knew it the whole time. The key on, 1 second. Pause. Throughout the year, what do we celebrate on the altar? The wine. Right? What's the altar? The altar, we pour the wine throughout the rest of the year. We only pour wine. There's no water. We pour wine. And the message is understand and learn and be sophisticated and appreciate it and like it and enjoy it and get a spiritual buzz when doing spiritual things. That's a good thing. You should be excited about doing spiritual things. Studying Torah should be an exciting thing. Doing a mitzvah, be excited about it. Learn about it. Be excited about it, etc. On Sukkot, what's celebrated on the altar is the water. Celebrating water? You're pouring water on the altar? What are you pouring water? God wants your water? Kind of God wants what? Wine. It's hush, fancy. It costs us a few shekel. Water? You're pouring water for God? Not only that, when you draw the water, you're making a party out of it, an all-night celebration, an all-night rave over the water. Who does that? On Sukkot, we celebrate the water. And you know what the celebration is? It's basically saying, Ashreinu matov chalkenu, how fortunate we are that we have the opportunity to get outside of our heads, to get outside of our hearts even, and to be able to do what's needed for the right cause without getting stuck in our own ego, without getting in the way of ourselves. When a person is able to transcend themselves and their need to understand everything, their need to appreciate everything, and to say, you know what, I don't need for this to make sense. I don't need for this to feel good. I can do the right thing just because the right thing to do. That unburdens oneself from the weight of one's own ego. I have to placate myself to make myself happy every single moment, or can I be free to just do what's right because it's right, to do good for goodness sake, for the sake of goodness, not for my own self-serving reasons, because I enjoy doing something good. In that moment of being able to get out of self and that unburdening of one's own ego, paradoxically, you know what that causes? The greatest joy. The greatest joy is getting out of our own way. I'm sure we've all had experiences of this, moments in which, you know, maybe you were feeling down, but then you volunteered and then you felt so good afterwards. And you're thinking, I just spent 3 hours not thinking about myself. Why am I so happy? I spent the previous 3 days trying to make myself happy and I felt worse. But then I spent 3 hours not even thinking about anything that I need, only thinking about the needs of others. And I feel so much better. What happened? You know what happened? You poured the water. That's what happened. Nisach hamayim, you pour the water. Instead of pouring the wine, which represents how I feel, you pour the water, which represents me being dedicated to the service of others or the service of God. And in the process of getting out of our own self, we discover the greatest joy. And that is the joy of Sukkot. Does this make sense? Yes? Yeah.
First time I've ever heard the explanation as to why this was such a great big party. Water.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal. The deal is like this. On Sukkot, it's important to recognize that with the pouring of the water only began on night number 2. Sorry, the drawing of the water and then the subsequent pouring of the water on the altar only happened day 2 of the holiday. Right, night 2 and then leading into day 2. They celebrated, they drew the water overnight, they poured it the next morning. So that all happened day 2. Day 1, they didn't do this. Day 1 was the typical joy, which reminds us that this is not negating the wine. It's adding another layer. It's adding another layer. And I think it's the perfect cap or culmination for the high holiday season. Because after all, what is Sukkot if not the culmination of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, coming on the heels of what we just experienced, Rosh Hashanah, when we weren't thinking about ourselves but crowning God as King. Yom Kippur, as I believe we discussed in a few different contexts over the last week or so, last few weeks, where you're not thinking so much about what I did wrong, but thinking about how important it is to be in a relationship with God. Right? It's like, I did this, I did that. Take it easy, says Rabbi Kiva. We learned last week. You don't have to specify all your indiscretions. Make it about God. Don't make this also. Don't make your atonement also about you. also about ego. Make it about God. So we make Rosh Hashanah about God. It's about crowning God as king. Make Yom Kippur about God, our relationship with God. How beautiful is it then to recognize that surrendering to God does not have to feel like depressing. Like you think of the servant of God, or the one who surrenders to God, maybe somebody who's bent over and who's like, just bent over all day and, never smiling. Contrast that with Simchat Beit HaShoeva, with the joy of the water drawing, which reminds us that this too can be filled with joy. This too can be filled with joy and with spirit. This doesn't have to be a depressing proposition. It doesn't be, well, either you can enjoy life, fine, or it's depressing. Welcome to the water world, right? That's not what it means. What it means is that water, Sukkot teaches us that water can also be fun. This class sponsored by Big Water. I'm kidding, right? This water can also be fun. Water can also be enjoyable. And what that means is we can even enjoy Kabbalat Ol. We can enjoy the process of surrendering to God, unburdening ourselves. You know how, I'll give you a parallel. You ever have that experience where you feel like you have the responsibility, whatever the responsibility is, but you feel like you're shouldering the entire weight of the responsibility, and it can feel sometimes like overwhelming and suffocating. And then there's a moment where that might shift and you realize, well, wait a second, I don't have to carry this alone. Like, why am I carrying this alone? And either one of two things, either you're like, I'm just taking this completely off, or I'm sharing it with someone else, and you just feel so much better about it. Now, something still has to be done, but like you feel so much better because you're not shouldering the whole weight. In a similar way, shouldering the weight of our own ego, trying to dance around ourselves to make ourselves okay and happy the whole time, it's a full-time job. It's a never-ending job. It's like they call it the hedonic treadmill. It's running after stuff to make ourselves. Look, if anyone is living their life to get, I'm just going to borrow a phrase, to get high, right? If we're looking for the next high, for the next hit, for the next hit, for the next excitement, for the next joy, for the next shot of wine, if that's what we're looking for, that's never going to end. It'll feel progressively worse and worse as we keep on trying to chase that. Trying to chase the high, even within Judaism. What are you chasing? I want to feel good about this mitzvah. I want to feel good about that Torah. I want to feel good about it. Again, it's not bad to feel good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying to chase that is a never-ending proposition. What's the alternative? The alternative is to just surrender, to go a different direction and say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because it's important to be done. I'm doing this for the community. I'm doing this for God. I'm doing this for the world. I'm doing this for my significant other. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my parents. I'm doing this for the other. And in the process of unshackling, basically unhitching ourselves from our own egos, there is the greatest sense of joy, the joy of Simcha Beit HaShoeva. And so,
Can I
the
ask
message.
you oh,
Yes.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So we put up the sukkah and we get rid of our brick and mortar homes, and we're in this space that is probably as close to God as we can be. We want to connect with God because God's going to provide our security. God, we open up the skach or whatever it's called, and so we can see the heavens and etc. So we're really close to God on Sukkot. So is the experience of that surrender to God, that connection in the sukkah, is that the water? In other words, I'm trying to
love that
because I love building the sukkah. I derive joy from building the sukkah. I derive joy from my wife derives joy from having people come and eat in our sukkah. These are things that create joy on an ego or selfish level, even though we're being selfless to do all this. But
so here we go.
Trying to get where the water is in the experience.
So first of all, thank you for sharing all of the above, because I think you gave some even more practical application here, right? What is this? I'm just going to repeat what you said, and then I'll address your question, which your question also I think is the answer, but let's just address it very quickly. What is a sukkah? Sukkah means we're leaving the comfort of the edifices that we've built to surround ourselves and protect ourselves and make us feel like we got this. God, it's okay. We have comfortable homes. And we put ourselves out there essentially in nature or amongst nature. And in that way, we make ourselves a little more vulnerable, and we surrender a little bit more to the world and the reality that God has created for us. And if it rains, then we're eating wet soup, right? Certainly Chabad, we stay in it, right? Hail or rain or whatever comes, we're in it to win it, right? So you're surrendering, you're putting yourself in a space of surrender. And I would say 1000%, I agree with you, Greg, that is not just modern, because in ancient times they also built Sukkot, right? It's from the beginning. The Torah says to build a Sukkah, but it's an embodiment, and it fits the theme of the Simcha Beit HaShoeva. It's not about how I feel, it's about surrendering. But I think the key here of today's classes, and it's almost like an impossible paradox. It's like, one second, either it's about your joy or it's about your surrender. Either it's water or it's wine. And I'm saying tonight, let's have it both. The Simchat Beit HaShoeva means that I'm enjoying the surrender. I'm enjoying the surrender. I'm dancing over what? Not the wine, over the water. And I think what you're saying is you're enjoying building, you're enjoying being outside. Exactly. Simchat Beit HaShoeva means that you're enjoying the water. That the water, which is typically surrender, which typically you think is somebody bent over and super humble and like a nebuch and whatever it is. No. We're having simcha in the very surrender that otherwise seems so bland and tasteless, and like, but I should enjoy surrender. It's like the NFL, what it used to be. Remember the NFL? Before they became the gambling league? I'm kidding. Right, remember NFL? If you danced, if you celebrated, no fun league. Remember? If you danced in the end zone, you were flagged. Surrender to the game, put the ball down and walk away, back away from the ball. You scored, right? And now it's like they pose, there's selfies, there's choreographed, there's people, there's next thing, I'm telling you it's gonna happen. Someone's gonna do a choreographed dance, acrobatics, with a pyramid and flip somebody. It's gonna be a whole, maybe they already done that. It's a whole thing. Someone tell someone, because that's my idea. It just timestamp this, October 15th, 8:33. I called it. So it's going to happen. My point is simple. It's simply this. We can blend the water with the joy. It doesn't only need to be the wine that brings joy. It could be the surrender. And if we think, well, hold on, but if I'm feeling joy, then it's ego. Then it's not. No. There's joy in letting go and being at one with God. There's joy in letting go and being there. To give food to people that are hungry, to volunteer. There's joy in building a communal circle. There's joy in being out there and being of service. You can't, maybe it's hard to explain, but you know what? Because it's not a sophisticated joy. It's just the joy of letting go and being there with God, with others in a beautiful space. So build your sukkah, enjoy your sukkah, because that's Simcha Beit HaShoeva. Yeah.
Also, water is life. And then I always had this, like I would always get in a stream and I would hike up the stream, up the mountain, and then try to find the spring, the source, like where is this pure?
Where's it coming from?
Because it's pure when it comes out of the ground. It's pure, you can drink that. So wine is, if we enjoy, one of the reasons we enjoy this holiday so much is because we earned it. So the earning is squeezing the wine and digging deep and getting rid of all the pollution of our ego to get to the source of our connection with God, the source of life. So I think maybe that's also the source of the enjoyment. Not only did we work for it by squeezing the wine to get to the water, but that working for it was sitting in shul on Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah during the day, headache, fasting. And yet we're digging deeper.
You described it so joyously.
Get to the source.
Yom Kippur sounds like so much fun. But I'm with you. I love your analogy of going out, discovering a river or a stream, and then going to the source. And I think there's something magical about the discovery. And so to kind of bring all the themes together, we started off today by talking about the uniqueness of the holidays. And I know we didn't read a lot of the text, but you could read them. You take it for homework or whatever. We started by contrasting the Nisuch Hayayin with the Nisuch Hamayim. Typically, you pour wine on the altar on the Mizbeach. On Sukkot, you pour water. Not only did they pour water, they had to draw the water. And when they drew the water, they partied. And with the core question, very simple class today, right? The simple question was, what's all the joy with the water? What are you rejoicing all night for 7 days? Rejoicing? Simchat Beit HaShoeva? By the way, to this day, any party that you have at night on Sukkot, you call it Simchat Beit HaShoeva. No one's drawing water, right? There's usually other liquids, whatever. But we call it Simchat Beit HaShoeva. Music, bands, celebrations, parties in people's Sukkot. There's a whole thing. So what's the joy with the water? And the core of the class, there's another 10 texts that I didn't read because I felt like we don't need to read it. Here's what you need to know. Wine is symbolic of sophistication. Wine is, I'm doing it because I understand it, because it makes sense, because it feels good to me. I do what feels good. And wine is, I do what's needed of me. Wine is surrender. I'm of service. And the greatest joy is the joy that is born of being of service and stepping up when it's needed, being a little bit more vulnerable, surrendering a little bit more.
You said wine is, you meant water.
Water. Good. Yes. Wine is sophistication. Water is letting go. Water is surrender. Water is vulnerability. Water is showing up where I'm needed. Water is communing with God on God's terms, not on my terms. And there's no greater joy than letting go. And that's it.
Okay, so does that mean, that means that this submission, this water concept and the wine concept of self desire of joy, it applies not just to your relationship with God and the things you do for God, but it's in your relationships with other people. Like Faye is bringing out a good point. Sometimes she wants me to do things that I don't
I just want it to be the water.
get it. You know, there's no wine in it for me.
Just be the water.
But she wants it and it's a water thing. So I just have to do
Be
it.
the water that you were meant to. Exactly. That's a perfect example in really human relationship. Huh?
T-shirts.
T-shirts, what would the t-shirt say?
Water.
Be the water. I like it.
Well,
Be the water.
she just brought out a case of water. I mean,
Faye has a case of water ready to go. Here's the point. The point is, in a human relationship, you can wait till it makes sense to you, like it, you're excited, and then do it, or you can do it because it needs to get, because the other wants it. That's real commitment. And honestly, that's what really cements a relationship and what keeps things going and what leads to real joy. Real joy is born of, the real joy of a relationship is not in the first week when everything's so, whatever, the excitement of a new relationship. The real joy of a relationship is years of commitment, right? Is the appreciation and the recognition of those years of commitment. So I want to give everybody a blessing. You know, we're standing 24 hours before before the start of Sukkot. My blessing for all of us is, number one, that you should feel God's embrace. Right? We said that a sukkah is the divine embrace, the divine hug. 1, 2, and 3. So message number one and blessing number one is feel God's love. And part of that is Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, right? We can turn to God and say, last year we felt something different. This year we need to feel your love. That's number one. And number two, on our end, that's on God's end, to feel God's. Number two on our end is, what are we committing to this year? What are we committing to in the sukkah? Not about us, but about where we're stepping up where we're needed, stepping in. You know, any great team, or baseball playoffs, almost the World Series, any great team, it's about players stepping up and filling the roles that they're needed. You're a starting pitcher, you may have to pitch relief. I don't pitch relief. It doesn't matter. You're a relief pitcher, you may have to start the game. Doesn't matter.
Relief pitcher?
You just got to get in there. You just got to get in there. You got to show up where you need it. That is the water. It's not about the glory. It's about the guts. But the guts leads to the glory. My friends, Chag Sameach, Chag Sameach. Have an enjoyable Sukkot. Don't forget the water. Don't forget to hydrate. And most importantly, always be open to God's blessings. Allow the rain, as it were, to come through in all of our lives. And may it rain this year, in the spiritual sense. And we should all be blessed. Let us say, Amen.
Amen.
All right. See you guys. Okay.
Could I add something?
Hold on 1 second. Before people leave, I just want to make a few announcements. Very important announcements. So next Tuesday night, there is we're not doing class. We're off for 1 week. In 2 weeks' time, the 29th, we are starting our brand new series. I teased it a few weeks ago. We're starting, and I sent out an email today for those that saw it. We're starting a brand new series of a brand new year of Torah study. The year 5785 of Torah studies is going to be focused on Rashi's commentary, what I like to call reclaiming Rashi. For centuries, literally almost 1,000 years, Rashi has always been thought of as Torah 101, the most basic commentary. What we are going to do is dig deep within Rashi to reveal the depth, beauty, brilliance, clarity of Rashi, what he was thinking, what his questions were, how he's answering them, and how his commentary includes some of the deepest Torah insights as well as practical takeaways. This is going to be an unforgettable year of Torah studies. The whole year, a whole year, 12 months of study. Join us. Every week is a new class. So if you can't catch one, no problem. You'll catch the next one. You'll catch a recording in between. Join us Tuesday, 7:30. Honestly, there's no other place to be, huh? Starting from 2 weeks. Correct, 2 weeks time. All right, Torah Studies 5785 is going to be bananas in a good way. Assuming bananas are good, bananas. All right, that's it. Oh, and nurturing, yes. No, speaking of relationship, nurturing relationships starting in 3 weeks from tomorrow, November 6th. Jewish wisdom for building deeper, richer connections in all of your relationships. And the key is, you'll find out.
Could I add something?
Yes, always, always.
Ari, could I add something?
Yes.
Okay. Wine is it doesn't come from God. It has to be made by man. It has to be manipulated.
I like it. Oh, that's good. I like that. Right.
Water is so basic. 98, what is it? 98% a human is composed of 96% water, something like that. I don't know. The doctor would know. Dr. Maxey would know.
Your point is well taken. In other words, wine is what we create, what we get excited about our own creation, and water is about receiving God's blessing.
It's the elemental basic building block of life, and if we
love it,
we celebrate that. That's what God gave us. That's how, that's it.
Love it. Love it. Little H2O.
Okay.
Good. All right. Yeah.
How does the world's largest singles party fit into that water drawing? Because weren't they, that's when all the.
No. That's not, no. That was different. The singles party was Tu B'Av. That wasn't this. Simcha Beit HaShoeva was just its own thing. By the way, they kept the men and women separate by that. The men were in the thing, the women were on the balcony, everything was kosher. Yeah. No, that was something else. That was the
it was not a
Tu B'Av. That was the Tu B'Av mixer. That was in ancient.
You just took my word.
They would borrow the white dresses, and that was that. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right. Good. Richard, you want to jump in?
If you drink wine and get the joy, and you drink it to the maximum, do you get joy maxi?
Opa! Okay, Dr. Maxey, I cannot take any responsibility for.
I'm sorry that Jerry is not here for his rim shot. I mean, the perfect rim shot.
We could use a Jerry rim shot.
Very good.
Correct. Pleasure. All right. Bottom line, Richard, you're bringing a smile to our faces. Just hearing your voice should be your blessing, your happiness, your commitment, a little surrender, and the joy of just letting go of self, not having to run after ourselves is like the most freeing thing possible. All right, awesome. So good to see you all. Laila Tov, Chag Sameach.
A good Yom Tov.
Good Yom Tov.
Laila Tov.
Lots of love to everybody.